It's not even done to turn my bed. So I'm worried. They don't see mine. Did I take it with me? I don't think so. I definitely put it
All this meeting to order. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good week 5. It feels crazy that it's part of week 5. Okay. It's been a crazy week for everyone, so I hope you're all doing well. Take some self-care time always. Remember that. Students first. Okay. We're going to move on to student speak out. Are there any students to speak out this evening? Do you want to do it? You want to do it during announcements, or do you want to do it?
I want to do it now.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Name and you know the show.
Emily Deering. Am I supposed to say my year too? Yeah. I'm a senior. College business. My address. Say that part too. No guidance. Okay, so I am actually speaking on behalf of a really special friend that came to her first Senate meeting tonight. There's only like one person over in like the general student area. I'm not gonna call her out. She'll get embarrassed, but she's right there. Mel is one of all of our constituents, and she brought it to my attention that she's really excited about all of the voting registration we've been doing. And I just wanted to put that out there so all of you guys that have been volunteering and sitting at that table and getting the people staring at you and then walking away even though you made direct eye contact with them. Thank you for putting yourself through that because it's making a difference. And our constituents like Mel are really excited to see us out there and to continue to do it. So thank you.
So I have a written statement from Jesse Keller, who was in Senate last year. So I'm just reading this quote for a second. According to current FDA policy, a potential blood donor who answers yes to the question, are you a man who's had sex with a man in the last 12 months, places that donor in the highest risk category to the blood supply. This is the same category in which IV drug users and those exposed to mad cow disease are placed. This is because of fear surrounding HIV and bars this person from donating blood, even though all donated blood is already tested before it enters the blood supply regardless. This means that bi and gay men, regardless of their real risk factor, are considered more dangerous to the blood supply than straight men who have solicited prostitutes or been treated for other sexually transmitted diseases. Biologically speaking, there is nothing about being gay or the act of gay sex which makes someone more likely to contract HIV or transmit it through a straight man or woman. The FDA's decision on this matter is based on unfair statistics and prejudice. Ohio University is frequent contact with the Red Cross for the purpose of blood drives. While we do not wish to disrupt the process of saving lives, we believe this is a fantastic opportunity to make this discrimination known. As such, the LGBT Center will be participating in volunteer protests in which we'll be assisting the Red Cross in the donation process. While we'll be assisting the Red Cross in the donation process while also providing information and affecting a change in prejudice so that people who want to save lives will be screened by their risk factor alone and not by their identity. And that's the end of this quote. The last part of my student speak out is that I agree with Jesse Keller's statement. I encourage the LGBTQA+ minority affairs and governmental affairs commissions to cooperate to find potential solutions/alternatives to this national issue.
Thank you. All right, any other students here to speak out this evening?
Hi, I'm Braden. I'm the HCOM Center. I don't know how many of you saw my post in the Slack about the public service health readiness thing. It was kind of a flop based on reports they sent out. And a couple people at the med school are real riled up about it and are more just looking for information about who to go to in administration. They're very familiar with peers at OU. So if anybody has any ideas of who I can tell them to contact, please let me know.
Thank you, Senator Krause. And I will be reaching out to you as well. Okay. Any other students here to speak out this evening? If not, we also we're going to move on to announcements. Does anyone in the body have an announcement this evening? Yes.
So I think probably everyone knows myself and two other student leaders / friends have been organizing a march and rally tomorrow. It's called It's On Us Bobcats. It starts at College Green at 7:30, and the mission of the rally is to promote accountability and really making sure that we're all holding our friends accountable and ourselves accountable for the actions that we do to prevent sexual violence on this campus. So it'd be really great to see you all there. I think there's going to be a lot of really great people there and solidarity going on. So, yeah.
Any other announcements this evening? Yes. Senator Curran.
Students for Law, Justice, and Culture is holding an information session on issue 1. So that will be on Monday, October 1st at 6 p.m. in Building 223. So if you want to learn more about issue 1, or if you want to get involved, or if you have no idea what issue 1 is, then you should come by.
What room again?
223.
What is issue 1?
6.
What is issue 1?
Issue 1 is a constitutional amendment that will be on the ballot in November. So basically, the point is that it reclassifies drug charges, so possession charges become misdemeanors. So it will retroactively free a lot of people who are in the prison system right now, which will then save Ohio like around $100 million over the course of the year, which can then be reallocated for rehabilitation programs and education programs.
And I encourage you, I think Senator Curran put this in the Slack a little bit ago, so if you're really interested in this, you should reach out to her. I know she's doing some work on it right now. So. Vice President Burke again.
You reminded me of something on. I know last week was Constitution Day, but tomorrow as well at 5 o'clock, there is a Constitution Day lecture. It's at Giardina. The person who's coming to speak is speaking about free speech on campus. So that will be that's always a really interesting and informative talk. So it's at Giardina at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Any other announcements this evening? Yes.
Just really quickly, I wanted to say that there are still, just concerning me at the Small Business Committee, there are still a few spots left on the committee, and if you're interested, please see me after this. I'm just trying to fill those spots as quickly as possible so we can get this rolling. But if you like I said, if you're interested, feel free to come talk to me.
Yes, Senator Deering.
Hello again. So next week, the week off from the 1st to the 5th, is Diversity and Inclusion Week, which is an initiative put on by the American Conference. So the Student Athlete Advisory Committee staff will be putting on events throughout the week. Our one main event, which is open to general students as well, so please tell your constituents as well as your commissions. It's going to be a presentation by our VP of Diversity and Inclusion, Dr. Subhuman, and also her assistant, Amanda, I can't remember her last name, who's going to talk about their professional leadership in diversity and inclusion group that they're forming, or is formed, I'm not quite sure. But she's going to speak on the importance of diversity and inclusion and highly competitive teams. It's not strictly athletics, it's highly competitive teams. So teams that are under high stress, fast paced, that sort of thing. And it is open to everyone. It's next Wednesday at 7 p.m. in Peden on the 4th floor. If you have any questions, feel free to come talk to me after the meeting. Thank you.
Any other announcements?
As next month is flu season, the official start of flu season, please just remember to get vaccinated, keep your hands clean, all that stuff. No one wants to get sick, especially as
Thank you. Any other announcements this evening? All right. If not, we're going to move on to our presentation this evening. We're going to have Dr. Winsome Shadu-Breda, the director of the Multicultural Center. She's here tonight, and we're really excited to have her. And Alicia is going to get her pledge.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Geez, what kind of hello is that? Oh, thank you.
How's your day?
Great. We just, I left, we had a Hispanic Heritage Month program going on with the Black Student Cultural Programming Board and the Latino Student Union, and we were doing some bachata and salsa dancing. And we have a bar, a natural bar, and then I looked at my time and I was like, oh, I have to go to Senate. And then I looked at the food, and then I was like, oh, Senate is so much more interesting. But thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I am excited to be here, and I want to start by applauding you all on the work that you're doing with voter registration, because I think it is important and also highly critical for our students to understand their role in terms of their responsibility to participate, be an active citizen in our democracy. Additionally, we are preparing our students to be global Bobcats, right? So we want them to do this. We don't care who they're voting for. We just want to make sure that they're doing their right as citizens, their responsibility rather. So I'm Winsome. I'm the director of the Multicultural Center. I am also the advisor for the Black Student Cultural Programming Board. And for those SAC people, they've seen me, they know who I am, and they've seen the work that BSCPB is doing on campus as well as the Multicultural Center. So I'm happy to be able to present this to the full Senate. So my job is, I have both because my job is 50% BSCPB, 50% director of the center. So I combine a lot of those responsibilities because it's next to impossible not to do that simply because of just the sheer volume of programming that we do. I only have 10 minutes, and I promise that I will go through the 48 slides in 10 minutes because I need to leave 5 minutes for questions. But if you want, I can always email you the slides if you're looking for like in-depth information. So I was asked to talk about the MCC, that's the Multicultural Center. How many of you know where the Multicultural Center is? I've seen it. Who don't know where the Multicultural Center is?
I apologize.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you're all going to know where it is after this, right? Yes? Yes? Okay. So I'm to talk about the MCC, what we do, as well as my role as the director, and then end with talking about how it serves as a resource for students. That's the prompt I was given. So we are in Baker Center on the second floor. We're the only office on the second floor. The other side of the second floor, all conference rooms as well as the theater. The Multicultural Center provides programming around the various heritage months, Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, American Indian Heritage Month, Women's History Month. We do programming around Holocaust remembrance as well, as also that we officially advise the Black Student Cultural Programming Board. This is I'll be highlighting some of the programs we did last year so you can see the extent of our reach across campus. So this is about the director. You also want to know what I'm doing. So I advise these organizations outside of BSCPB. I sit on these committees for the universities. I also do lots and lots and lots of training on campus around cultural competency, implicit bias, and microaggression. Those are the trainings that I get requests for most often, and they are also really, 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 really needed on our campus. So these are committees and trainings that I sit on, different things that I do. I'm going to go through really fast because, again, I only have 10 minutes. So this is everything that I'm doing. This is what I do. So I also go to the regional campuses, Ohio University regional campuses, our med schools. I've presented to the Ohio Social Work Association, the Athens Foundation, the Southeast Ohio Legal Association, and these are all trainings around microaggression, implicit bias, and I tailor all my trainings to the group. So for example, when I presented to the Southeast Ohio Legal Association, I talked about implicit bias in the law and how we look for sort of how lawyers make those kinds of decisions. I also publish scholarly articles in peer-reviewed journals. I have several book chapters. This is just one of the books that I'm working on right now under contract with the University Press. I also am a reviewer for several journals. This is some of my most recent publications. I consider myself a scholar practitioner. So although I am an administrator and I'm not necessarily required to publish, I think it's important that I do so and that I establish myself as someone who is in my field, but also have an in-depth knowledge of the theoretical concepts that underpin my field. Another reason that is really important to me is very often diversity work gets dismissed as fluff, and we're just trying to tell everybody they need to hug each other and be nice to each other. And while we want you to be cordial with each other, it's not just about hugging and singing and having a good time. It's about the history of our country, what has happened, and how that history continues to inform our society as it is today, which is why I started out by applauding you about the voter drive that you're doing. Okay, what are some programs that we've done? And this is in conjunction with the center and BSCPB. These are just some stats of the program and the attendance. These are a list of the programming that we're doing, a list of the organizations, offices, colleges, programs, etc. that we've collaborated with. Some highlights of our cultural programming. We program around Hispanic Heritage Month. As I said before, the Blackburn Spencer pageant, Senators Always Bought the Table. That's where we raise money for our scholarship that is given out at the Leadership Gala in the spring. And last year we gave out $10,000 in scholarship. Every dime of that money is raised by the participants in the pageant and their sponsoring organization. They do grilled cheese, all kinds of fundraising, and you're probably going to see them around campus here pretty soon. We have an art gallery in the center as well. We host 3 exhibits last year. I tried to keep the focus of the art gallery as a part of our community outreach. And so the focus of the gallery is on local artists. This spring, we will be celebrating the Women of Appalachia 10th anniversary, and that is 41 different artists who work in various mediums will be exhibited in the gallery. Educational programming that we've done, American Indian Heritage Month. Every time I look at this picture, I think about it, I was like, dang, I know I'm short, but gee. It's always interesting when you see yourself next to. And you probably, for those of you who are seniors, you probably recognize Jeffrey. Anybody? Jeffrey Lindsay? That's him right here. He was the president of BSCPB several years ago and was really active. Case for Kwanzaa. How many of you know what Kwanzaa is? Okay, Kwanzaa is celebrated December 26th for 7 days. And no, it is not Black Christmas. Kwanzaa started, this is what we usually get. Kwanzaa started in the 1960s as a sort of anti-capitalist movement for people of color. So it's about, rather than spending your money buying gifts, this is a time when you make gifts at home and then you exchange them. And then every night, the family comes together for 7 nights and talk about what keeps them together, why this is important, etc. This is another one of our community outreach programs where we bring in elementary school students from East and West Elementary School to learn about the principles of Kwanzaa. And it's really funny. There are 7 principles. They're in Swahili with an English translation, and it's always so funny hearing the students say, for example, Kujichagulia is self-determination, and then they're like, Kujichagulia, self-determination. It's fun to see that they're walking away with something, right? And also, as a university, we have a responsibility to reach out to the community where we are. We do a Holocaust Remembrance Program. For the last 8 or 9 years, we've brought a Holocaust survivor to campus. It's always well attended. What are some of the social programming we do? Sibs Weekend Concert. We hosted a variety of hip hop artists. This was when we had T-Pain. All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Yeah, got money on my mind. No. And I love this song, right? Because my name is Winsome, and it's like, so all I do is win, win, win. Yeah. Oh, jeez. Okay, and so Moms Weekend Expo, we also have a huge Mom Weekend Expo. We get anywhere between 700 to 800 moms. General body, what are some things we do on BSCPB? Free Fun Fridays. We also do a lot of professional development. I'm a huge proponent of professional development in student organizations because I say to students at the beginning of the school year, at the end of the year, when you leave BSCPB, I want you to say, what are some skills you learned for the year that you were in this organization? And so we do a lot of professional development. I do some of them, and for others, we bring faculty or staff in to conduct them. We do a throwback concert with UPC. Any UPC members here? Anybody? Okay. And Kashenda Ritos de Pasaje is our multicultural graduation. Kashenda is a Swahili word, which means to cross over, and Ritos de Pasaje is a rites of passage, and it is held the Friday evening of graduate commencement in Memorial Auditorium. We used to host it in Daycare Center Ballroom, but it has outgrown the ballroom, and it is really exciting. We like it. This is a picture that we take. This was last year's class, and so the students do. I know it is not a Black graduation. We don't have a Black and a white graduation at Ohio University. We have one graduation. This is a celebration for students who are a part of this group, and they want to wear kente cloths and kind of display all they've done throughout the school year, etc. Dean Hall Jones is a consistent attendee at Kashenda, and so she knows everything that happens there and the fun that we've had. Linda Daniels is actually the first director of the Multicultural Center. Unfortunately, she passed away about a month ago today, and I wanted to highlight the work that she's done. Not only is she the first director of the Multicultural Center, the multicultural graduation grew exponentially under her leadership, as well as she started many of the programs that we did. The center usage, we also, in the Multicultural Center, we have 2 meeting rooms that student groups, offices, organizations, etc. uses. And so these are, I keep the numbers so we can know like the number of people are coming in using the center, etc. I have this here about Harvard because they're still trying to get the Multicultural Center there. And like what we have, and it's more like a bragging rights, like I'm showing off that we have an awesome center. Harvard doesn't. How can the center be used as a resource for students? So one of the things one of the areas we work in is improving student success and the climate. So because of the work that we do in terms of professional development, integrating students in multicultural organization, the center is crucial in that area. There are over 34 multicultural student organizations on campus. I advise about 6 of them, but I informally advise all the other 29. And so it is important in that way. The Multicultural Center is a space where they come, where they meet, and where they develop as leaders. I am always amazed at my students. When they're here for their first year, I do not refer to my students as freshmen because that's an outdated term that was used at a time when only men were going to college, and we know we've moved beyond that years and years and years and years ago, right? So I refer to my students as first-year students. I am always amazed when they come in as first-year students, and by their junior year, how a lot of them grown exponentially in terms of their leadership, their public speaking skills, and so that's another part of what we do. We provide opportunities for them to learn from people different from themselves. We provide opportunity for them also to grow, for students to grow in terms of their critical thinking skills. So, for example, when I go to a classroom to do a presentation of uncontrolled competency, I engage students. Sometimes they're a little bit uncomfortable with the conversation, and that's fine. If we're not uncomfortable, we're not growing. And we're preparing you to be global Bobcats. I say to my students, what I don't want from any Bobcat is, and I'm using Wall Street as an example because I did a training last week for the College of Business. If there's somebody working at cubicle next to you and the person is wearing a headband, a head wrap, and then the person say to that person like Assalamu alaikum or something, assuming that you're Muslim when you're actually Sikh. That's not what we want from our Bobcats. We want global Bobcats. Anywhere you go, we want you to be able to have a conversation with anybody who's there and feel totally at ease doing it. That's what we're preparing you for. So that's a critical role of the center. Again, I talked about voting because we're also preparing you all to be citizens in an increasingly complex and diverse society. We all know, as I say to my students, the demographic of this country is changing and will change significantly in about 20 years when Hispanics will be the largest demographic in the country. I say to my students, you can either prepare yourself to meet that change, or you can pretend like it's not going to happen and hide your head under the sand. But I can guarantee you, those of you who recognize that it's going to happen and prepare yourselves for that change are the ones who are going to be the most successful. That's why we want to prepare you all to be global Bobcats. It's also a meeting space for students. You can book any one of our rooms in the center and use that space to have your meetings. Professional development. We do, again, I talked about professional development for students. I am really big on professional development for students because that's where you learn and you grow. How many of you seen Black Panther, the movie Black Panther? Okay. So Chadwick Boseman, who stars in the movie, was the keynote speaker at Howard University, that's his undergrad this year. A really, really excellent speech. It's about 34 minutes. I suggest you watch it. One, because he addressed two things. He addressed student death protests and talked about how the president and the students, and they differ, but how they work together and why it's important and how the students use those skills afterwards. He also talked about that he himself was involved in protesting on campus and how that worked, and a Senate, student Senate, who you're kind of in this role where you're contesting with the administration for some things. It's kind of, he did a really good job talking about how those negotiations are critical for helping you, particularly when you leave Ohio University and you enter a world that is far less forgiving than that you would ever see on campus. But one of the things he said, and this is a quote that I like, he talks about, and this is in general, I'm a huge proponent of the liberal arts education because I believe in bodies such as Student Senate and what you can gain being a part of this organization if you really immerse yourself into gaining those skills. And what he said is, bodies like these, VSCPB, Student Orgs, the Multicultural Center, what we do is take the education out of the realm of theory into utility and practice. And that's important, and that's why it's important that students can get the kind of training that the Multicultural Center provides. I was also looking at another study where they talked about one of the things they recommend that students do, and it doesn't matter your demographic, is look at a particular university that they're interested in, and they say, look to see what they have in terms of extracurricular activities. Look at what kind of multicultural clubs, unions, associations, or extracurricular activities they have and that are present on their campus. You also need to see whether or not you're active. Because it's one thing to list that we have all these organizations, and then when you get to campus, you realize that half of them are not active. That's not the case with our multicultural organizations. They are all very active. And of course, we do multicultural education, and we have the Blackboard Spencer Scholarship Program. I think that's it. Yes, 10 minutes today.
That was excellent.
Okay, good. Good.
Can you please tell us your contact information if students want to get involved with
Sure. My email is Chunnu, my last name, CHUNNU at ohio.edu.
Very cool. Thank you.
I've also done implicit bias and microaggression training at Senate retreats, student Senate retreats.
So I'm gonna try and ask this question in the most unbiased way possible, so you can see my.
It's fine. I'm used to this. Don't worry.
I don't think it's what you think. What is Student Senate's role in topics of national debate affecting our constituents? In your opinion, it's something that comes up a lot in the body, that there's groups that debate both sides. Do you believe that we have a role in some of these national debates?
Oh, absolutely. Because if not, why are you here? If we're preparing you to be global bobcats and you're here just dealing with stuff that's going on campus, like meal cards, etc., that's a waste of time. We can put together a Blue Ribbon Commission, a panel, or something to do that. And what the Senate implies. So just think about Senate and what Senate means. Historically, if we go back to the Greeks, I'm a huge fan of Socrates, by the way. And also Socrates, the way they describe him, he would walk around Athens, Greece, and I love Athens, and he would be pontificating all day about issues of national importance, right? And he was always drawn in front of the Senate because he was always challenging what the government was doing, which is also why he was killed. Yeah, yes. Because again, and we know there are people in this country who've been killed for their beliefs. So it's been going on since time immemorial. And so being Senate implies something, right? A bigger, larger responsibility. And our president is one of his strategic pathways is diversity and inclusion. And what that means when you have a large strategic vision in any organization or institution, the goal of every unit under that is to support this bigger mission. And so the larger mission of the president is increasing diversity and inclusion and preparing you to be global bobcats. It means that an important arm of the student body, such as Student Senate, should be responding to those bigger issues as well as smaller issues. As to how you take position on issues, that's a more nuanced debate or topic that you can probably talk with Jen about. But yes, I really do think that you should be a part of, and I'm always conflicted with this. So I'm very active in social media, and I have very strong beliefs about the things that I believe in. I'm very passionate about the things that I believe in, because it's important to me that people know where I stand, and that I am honest about where I stand and who I am. And that you like me for that, or you don't like me for that, and that's fine with me too. I have lots and lots and lots of friends. So if 5 people don't like me, don't want to be my friend anymore, I'm not really losing out. And so I appreciate people for who they are and for the things that they believe in, and I think it's fine. But Howard Zinn, how many of you know Howard Zinn? Okay, you can't be neutral in a moving train. So he's a renowned professor who back in the 1960s, had challenged his students, his white students, to get involved in the civil rights movement. And so the phrase then come up where he said, if you're on a train and the train is going somewhere, you cannot, when the train stops, say, I didn't realize where we were going, because you're on the train. So you must take a position. We are a public institution, so the kind of positions that we can take on issues are a little bit more sensitive, but I also believe strongly that if we're preparing our students to be global Bobcats, and if we believe in a strong liberal arts education, that there's some issues that if we are preparing you to be active citizens in a democracy, I believe that there's some issues that we should not be silent on. And you're also students. You have the kind of leverage to be vocal about things that we can't be as administrators necessarily without facing consequence because we're not students. So you have that voice and you should use it, but also use it wisely. Not go, oh, we need to get this and we need to get, no. It has to be informed by a larger thing. So why are we taking a position as students? Because historically these things have happened. Here is how we've responded as an institution. And my university also has a long history of student activism. And so we can look to our history to say that our students have never sat on the sideline and watched the world pass us by. Because at the end of the day, what is history going to remember you for? And one of the things I tell the BSCPB exec board members every year is, what is your legacy going to be? So Senate of 2018, 2019, what is your legacy going to be? We have a lot of pressing issues facing our nation and the world, and you are all in leadership positions. And students should look to you as a body for that. Another critique I have of Senate is we know that only a very small percentage of our students actually vote in the Senate election. And I think a part of that too is that the students need to see you as this body that is really engaging them in a way that they begin to think critically about what is happening around them. You have a role, you have a history. What is your legacy going to be? What are you going to leave behind when the year ends to say, this is what we were doing, here is President Nellis's agenda, and here is what we did as 2018, 2019 to help drive President Nellis's strategic pathways. And that's what I'm saying. You have a perfect opening to do that because the president is committed to issues around inclusion and diversity and being active globally with what is going on. And so harness that and use it. That was probably too loud. Who else? Yes.
I was just curious, like, I know that under your umbrella there is some fraternity and sorority life, and I was wondering if you ever found it difficult, like Greek Week or like with homecoming, for those fraternities feel included with the social fraternity and sororities.
Okay, so we used to advise the National Pan-Atlantic Council, which consists of the 9 historically Black Greek letter organizations, but we do not anymore. They were moved under Student Affairs, and it made sense to align all the Greek letter organizations. But nevertheless, the students who are part of NPHC, they all hang out in the Multicultural Center. And I am also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which is a historically Black sorority, the first in the finest. So we've had some challenges over the years, and for those of you who were here when we had to build a wall, anybody on the graffiti wall, and then we had to have some conversations around that. So there are often those kinds of challenges. And again, I want to be as delicate as possible.
Well, like part of the reason I asked is like my fraternity is paired with Alpha Phi Alpha for homecoming. I like trying to get them involved because we understand like when we were paired with somebody during Greek Week, it was like we didn't see them anywhere, and we like felt like I feel like we didn't include them. And I felt bad about that. So I'm wondering if like that had been a problem you'd seen across the board, or if it was like issue by issue.
I think it's organization. It varies with organizations, and so when the orgs get paired up for Greek Week, I'm trying to help them understand the reason for doing that, and that it's about showing unity as people who belong to Greek letter organizations. And then there's a sense that, well, they didn't tell us they were going to be practicing. And so I think for me, and this is what I recommended to some of the members of NTHC, to suggest to the councils, the governing councils, that once they get paired up, then we need to, before all of that happen, is not just say, okay, you're going to be with this person or that person, but have a list to say, as organizations that are going to be working together, here's a checklist. Everybody, you need to have the numbers of the people who are there, check. You need to make sure that you create some kind of group me or something, check. Everybody needs to agree on the theme, check. Everybody needs to agree on the music, check. Because what tends to happen is, because you all are so much larger, kind of dominate the conversation, and then there's a sense, particularly if the students that are a part of that process are sort of shy, they may not speak up, and they may be like, oh my God, I'm just gonna do whatever they tell me. And so I said, these kinds of issues are not, as I say to everyone, there's no magic bullet. And so what I say is there's no great way of dealing with any of these kinds of things. But what we can do is think about what are some parameters or some guidelines that we can work with. And then in the first meeting, you set out like, this is how it's gonna happen. And people have never really done that. There was just, okay, well, I called this person, they didn't call me back, so I didn't go to practice. But there was never like an official, like, let's sit and have a list. And if you mean you have to create a list, type the list, print the list, do a check off, then that's a way to kind of start doing that. But of course, too, again, the bigger picture is we also need a lot of changing in terms of our ideas about Greek life and the way we see some of this stuff. Again, school is a reflection of society, and society is a reflection of school. So we are not divorced from what is happening in the larger society. And whatever is happening in the larger society, the issues that are around, they will make their way on campus. And so we need to keep that in mind as well, because sometimes we say, well, we're all in college, we're all educated, why are we still doing this kind of stuff? Well, we're also a part of a larger society. We're not immune from that. And so we always need to go in thinking that we need to also understand that we're not immune from that because we're in higher ed and because we're educated.
Thank
so
you.
That's one thing that I've suggested to them. I don't know if they've.
Do you think the best way for fraternity pair with one of those organizations, like to go to the multicultural center and like try and reach out and say, hey, like president or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
So that they can see you in a space that is not your space.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I think we're coming for one more. No more.
We can do one more question. Does anyone have one more question for tonight? I was actually going to ask a question. What is your favorite event of the year that you advise, and what is one that you really recommend for us to all attend? I know that's such a hard question, but no, it's so tough.
I love the homecoming pageant has just been one of my absolute faves, and we get alums who come back. As a matter of fact, BSCPB started, just some quick BSCPB history. So BSCPB started around, I say, early 1970s. There isn't a specific date. So there's a student who was here, and we had a president, President Slow. And I'm not sure how many of you were following the news when they had all the protests at University of Missouri. So the black students at the time sitting in President Slow's office and demanded that they wanted black RAs. Black students are still doing that today. This was the 1970s. They demanded that they need black professors. Black students are still doing that today. They did that in 1970. They demanded that they wanted black staff. Black students are still doing that today. They did that in 1970. So they had a sitting in President Slow's office. President Slow ended up resigning because the black students really took over and demanding that, they get this kind of representation. Out of that grew BSCPB. About 6 years ago, Jenny, you remember Ben Brock? Yes? So Ben's dad is one of the founders of the ACPB. And he brought a whole slew of post articles from the 1970s and gave me, and we have a really great archive from ACPB if anybody wants to come and check it out, but all the way back to the 1970s. And he provided all these newspaper clippings of everything that happened with ACPB. And then he said to me, I'm surprised ACPB is still around. I was like, what do you mean? He said, when we tried to start this organization, they had phones in the residence hall, landline. What's that? And they would get calls, and they faced all kinds of death threats of people thinking that they're going to start this Black Power movement on campus. So he said, I thought they would have thrown you all off campus by now. I was like, no, they haven't. And as a matter of fact, we're one of the 3 large lump sum funded organizations that holds a prominent place in terms of the university and student senate. And he was like, wow, he was really impressed with that. So there's a little bit of ACPB history there. But leading into the pageant, the first pageant was in 1976, and it was called Miss Black Homecoming. I was like, ooh. You know, when you think about language and how language has evolved, it's like Miss Black Homecoming. But then we later renamed it, so it's a Blackburn Spencer Scholarship Pageant, and it was named after Martha Jane Hundley Blackburn, who was the first African-American female graduate of OU, as well as Donald Spencer, who's the first African-American to serve as chair of the Ohio University Board of Trustees. So that's why I like it, because it is rooted in the history of the organization. It is also rooted in the history of our university, and it demonstrates sort of where we've come and where we still need to go. And we always have a history of our archive at the pageant as well for people to see. So yeah, I do like a hip hop concert. It's a beast to put on. It stresses me out. These artists annoy me. They come and they act all extra and they want all kinds of stuff, and then I have to like, let's just bring it down and watch, right? You're at OU. I'm the advisor. You're not going to come and tell me what you're going to do. But nevertheless, I do it because I know the students really love it. So it's nice meeting all these rappers and actually seeing them interact. And a lot of them are pretty short. Because you see people on TV and they're like, I never said, man, like John Legend is pretty short. And we had John Legend, Lil Wayne, Keisha Cole, blah, blah, blah. But you can't really bring the people right now. It's like, it's not so expensive. But the pageant is my fave, all-time fave.
Well, we do have a table this year, so you'll be seeing that. Okay. But I just want to give another hand for one second. Stop by the Long Cultural Center on the second floor if you have or haven't done it yet. So thank you so much again.
You're welcome. I'm also a Bobcat. I'm a 2-time alum of OU. I am an international student. I came to the United States for undergrad. I was born and raised in Jamaica. I went to a historically Black college in Austin, Texas, and then I came to OU for grad school. So I became a citizen of the United States 2 years ago. I can now vote, which is what I've always wanted to do. So, thanks again.
All right. You're going to move on to choose that big call roll. President Sloat, present. Vice President Sharp, present. Treasurer Ramsey, Commissioner Weeks,
Present.
Senator Kashu, Senator Thorne, Senator Newhart, Senator Shaver, Senator Moore, present. Senator Kraus,
Present.
Commissioner Jones,
Present.
Senator Gibson, present. Senator Alieva,
Here. Present.
Senator Martin, present. Commissioner Wilson, absent. Commissioner Slaughter,
Present.
Commissioner Cooney, Senator Ramla, Commissioner Ness. Senator Sweeney. Senator Joram. Commissioner Zimmerman.
Oh, proxy.
Senator Rader.
Proxy.
Commissioner Smith. Senator Chapman.
Present.
Senator Jones.
Present.
Senator Levon. Senator Adams. Senator Gritson.
Present.
Commissioner Arnold.
Present.
Commissioner Graffis.
Present.
Senator Carmen.
Present.
Senator Soto Diaz. Senator Conrad Smith.
Present.
Senator Fink. Commissioner Holtman. Senator Baker. Senator Shonway.
Present.
Senator Ryda. Senator Bower. Senator Suzanne. Senator Deering. Commissioner Thomas. Senator Kramer. Senator Hurd. Commissioner Ayers. Senator McCarthy. Senator Kellens.
Present.
Clerk of Court Malcolm. Excellent. Thank you, Chief of Staff Lundy Moore. All right, we're going to move on to additions to the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda tonight? Yes. I'm going to motion to add Senate Resolution 18-1927 to Resolution Fund Senate giveaway items and Senate Resolution 18-1928, a resolution to fund a bus ticket for each. Okay, all those in favor of adding Resolution 18-1927 and 18-1928 to the agenda, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions, one abstention. So added to the agenda tonight. Okay. And then we're going to move to approve the meeting. Second. All those in favor of adopting the previous meeting minutes, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions. All right, those are approved. Okay, we do not have any old business tonight, so we are going to move on to our new business. So our first resolution tonight is Senate Resolution 18-1924, a resolution to appoint a senator to the Minority Affairs Commission, whereas. Second. Okay, primary sponsor, Commissioner Zimmerman.
Sorry, I have to pull up the statement.
We're taking notes at the same time.
Yeah, I know, a lot is happening. So Jalen came in for an interview last week and is super interested in promoting the minority presence across campus, especially as it pertains to collaboration among minority organizations themselves. He has many great ideas, so I really think that will pass this resolution. She reserves the balance of her time.
Great, thank you. Secondary sponsor, Vice President Burke.
Commissioner Zimmerman told me he did a great job in the interview and that he was a lot of enthusiasm. And so now I'm in another org and I know that he was a good person and will have to get the job done.
Is there any discussion on this resolution? Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jalen, you want to raise your hand? Stand up. Good call, Senate.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Second, right. It's been moved and seconded to vote on Senate Resolution 18-1924. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions. Passes. We have another appointment. So Senate Resolution 18-1925, a resolution to appoint a senator to the Minority Affairs Commission. Whereas. Second, right, primary sponsor, Commissioner Zimmerman.
Yo, I got it ready this time. I interviewed Spencer earlier this week, and I was also extremely impressed by his leadership skills and initiatives for improving campus. In addition to wanting to use his background to help students across campus, he is eager to learn about issues that other minority groups face. She reserves the balance of her time.
Great, thank you so much. Secondary sponsor, Vice President Burke.
So is Spencer here? Hi, Spencer. You're doing it right this time. So again, Commissioner Zimmerman, that Spencer had a great interview, and she's really excited to have him join their team.
any discussion on this resolution?
Vote.
It has been moved and seconded to vote on Senate Resolution 181925. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions. Motion passes. Moving right along. Senate Resolution 181926, a resolution to help fund the Love Yourself Week keynote speaker. Whereas, okay, primary sponsor, chair.
So this is for an event during Love Yourself Week. Basically, you can go a little bit more in detail about this, but it goes into a large pot of money to fund the speaker. The speaker is $5,000. Funding is part of it, $500. Upon reviewing the budget application, the committee reports that it has met all the criteria outlined for approval. I yield the rest of my time to Mr. Thomas.
So Love Yourself Week is put on yearly by the Women's Center, the Pan Atlantic Association, Community Project, and the Intersection Alliance. Just like plug it, on October 22nd, they're doing video affirmations with Tom Baker. 23rd, they're doing October. They're doing scale smashing, and then the 24th, Beverly Good is going to be there, and the 25th, Beverly Good is going to be there. And she pioneered, she invented or created the hashtag Why I Stayed with regards to Live By You Stay violent domestic relationship. And her speech is going to be about how it's not just a women's issue, it's an everyone issue. Domestic violence affects everyone in some way. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Secondary sponsor, Senator Hurwitzik.
So everything checks out. All the forms look good.
Is there any discussion on this? Yes.
what is the next? Well, this is the speaker, so Beverly Good is the speaker, and that's what we're directly.
Yeah, all right. So, any other discussion on this resolution? Yes.
Do you guys have a great location yet?
Yeah. It's not nice, is it?
No, I didn't know.
So, yeah, October 25th, 7 p.m. in this particular. Don't see where your money's going.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Commissioner Ayers.
I don't know how this plays into decision making here, but they already got Saturday. So I don't know if that.
I think it's important, just as Clancy, as Commissioner Thomas brought up, it was being sponsored by a lot of really big women's groups on campus. So I think it's really good for the Senate and there's commission to be a part of that. I'm sure that with this money will come WAC, Twitter account, retweeting things and trying to get the word out there. So I think it's just a good way to kind of get the word out in other ways, as well as financial.
Any other discussion? Yes, Senator York.
Can I make a motion? Sure. I'd like to move the table until we can talk with that. This event's the 25th.
Is there a timeline with the discussion right now? Yeah, we could. Do you want to discuss it later, or?
We can discuss it now, I guess, yeah.
It's a lot, it's gonna be a long discussion or a short? What would you like?
How much money did you give them? What's it for?
Yeah.
Are they, I'm just trying to determine if they're double dipping or not.
Can we table this for later?
Yeah, we can come back to it after. Yeah.
Move its table until all the rest of the legislation is discussed.
All those in favor of tabling until the end of the resolutions tonight, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions. 4 abstentions noted. Okay, we're going to table it until the end so that Anna has the time to look it up. Okay, we're going to move on to Senate Resolution 1819-27, a resolution to fund Senate giveaway items. Whereas, primary sponsor, Commissioner Slosser.
So this is a budget for a couple different things. Giveaway items will go to certain events that are going to be fun throughout the year. So this is a bulk purchase that will go for multiple events. The first kind of PR giveaway is going to be for Get Out the Vote. We're going to be doing a social media campaign. We're going to be giving away 3 of these thermoses a week. Once early voting starts, all you need to do is tweet a picture of your iVoting sticker to be entered into the contest. We'll have more information about that as soon as early voting starts on October 10th up until election day, November 6th. Second thing that this is going to is the homecoming giveaway for the student affairs event. So they asked in lieu of a monetary donation for food that we fund giveaway items for that. And let those keep going for tabling events. Upon reviewing the budget application, the committee reports that it has met all the criteria outlined for approval. And I reserve the balance of my time.
Great, thank you. Secondary sponsor, Senator Newart.
Met all the criteria, passed with flying colors.
Thank you, Senator Newart. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Yes, Assistant Patrick.
Are these tumblers going to be just plain big Ohio logos?
They're going to have the Ohio University logo.
Any other discussion on this resolution?
Just a vote.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to vote on Senate Resolution 1819-27. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstentions? Voted 2 abstentions. Resolution passes. All right, we're going to move on to Senate Resolution 1819-28, a resolution to fund a bus ticket for a speaker, whereas. Okay, primary sponsor, Commissioner Fletcher.
Yeah, this is the bus ticket for the speaker that spoke yesterday. Yes, that was yesterday. The speaker for the International Affairs event. It was a bus ticket to get here. Excuse me. I'm all can speak a little bit more about it. Upon reviewing the budget application, the committee reports has met all the criteria outlined for approval. And I yield my time to Commissioner.
Yeah, so that was just the ticket to get the speaker here. But yeah, the event went really well. It was awesome. Really good. It was nice to get to meet someone like that. Meet a really cool activist. But yeah, that was just really blessing. We just ended up looking at after all the budgets were submitted, et cetera, et cetera. So, university. $100. The other, no. What was it? I reserved that time. Wow.
Thank you. Secondary sponsor, Senator Hurtsig.
Yeah, all forms passed. It's good.
Any discussion on this resolution?
So when we passed this budget last week, was this over votes? Because I thought we did pay for.
No, okay, so, can I start? Can I hear please one? No, there was multiple bus tickets in this journey. There's multiple places. This one was just, because he was in Pittsburgh before, to get that. We just ended up having to go to that afterwards. And so I just.
Any other discussion on this resolution?
Vote. Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded to vote on resolution 1819-28. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions? 1 abstention, the resolution passes. Okay, we're going to bring back up Senate Resolution 1819-26. I want to recommend that if this is going to be an ongoing conversation, I should be. Okay. I guess I'm just going to do the Senate Resolution 1819-26, a resolution to help fund the Love Yourself Week keynote event, whereas. We're going to bypass the primary and secondary sponsors. So, Commissioner Ayers, would you like to speak to this?
Okay, so your question was how much was allocated to them? Okay, so the SAC funding cap is $1,500. They applied for part of the speaker fee, and then part of the contract with the speaker is lodging and transportation. So we decided not to fund travel or lodging expenses. So we gave them $1,410 of the $1,500 that they applied for. Again, the total fee is $5,000. based on where I read and where I did research on about Beverly Gordon, this is good. It is a great event. I just wanted to make everyone aware that staff gave you that in no way needs to necessarily impact your decision. It's just for the sake of information.
Yeah, Treasurer Ramo.
So my opinion on this is I feel we should still move forward and fund this since it is $5,000 and Zach has only given us $1,400 about, and if we can help them out with the $500, that would be much appreciated. They have reached out to other organizations who will hopefully help them as well, but those are still pending. So I think, as Hannah said, we should promote Senate and Senate. So last year, myself and Senator Lavon hosted an event called Unchained, and we did this through our capacity in Senate, but we asked for SAC money as well as got money through Senate. So there is a precedent of having both, as well as I think the planning for could be made again. I think this is a really good thing to come here. Really good is like in person. If you don't know about her, like you should research her. She's like a celebrity of some sort. So I think that having Senate, being able to be a part of bringing them here is really important.
Is there any other discussion?
So this isn't going to change my opinion. I feel like there are some people that are thinking this. Has other people raised money to help come to the council as well?
Yeah, but there are organizations that don't have like the like they may have had to do like separate fundraising or apply for that funding. And then another thing that I just want to say is that staff funding something is not the same as the Senate giving it their stamp of approval and their sponsorship. So that's the difference between the two. So this would be us saying like the Senate is sponsoring the event.
Vote.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded to vote on Senate Resolution 1819-26. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions, one abstention. Resolution passes. We got through. Okay, we are now going to move on to our committee reports. Okay, so we're going to have it as needed this week. Yes.
This is a commissioner report for Commissioner Net. She said, we are working on our many progress in October, including Cup Day, Monday on October 8th from 1 to 2 in the OWBT Center, National Coming Out Day tabling on October 11th, and a CPS talk in front room on the 12th from 3 to 4. That's just the 11th. We will also be distributing historical profiles around campus for LGBT History Month. Additionally, I am drafting a resolution to support the Food Studies Initiative to refine OU's definition of local so that it is not misleading. If anyone is interested in helping, please contact me. Thank you.
That's at the end of her report. Any other commissioners have updates? Yes, Commissioner Arthur.
Again, thank you for what came yesterday. Super cool. Super proud. Yeah. So the International Peace Commission, we're coming. As I don't know if I mentioned this the other last week, but we're coming up with a student. What's the word you said you can't use? Intramural, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're having like an international student athlete. Powder puff is the best way. Okay, there we go. With like with student athletes. And if we we're collaborating with New Life specifically, through collaborating here and there. But we also want more help. Jordan has talked about wanting to combine or to partner with the Minority Affairs Commission, especially Sparkles, and have a cheer with us. So if your commission or anyone that's not like, doesn't have to be specific to your commission, but if you want to come and help us out, we need a lot of help. This event's like going to be really big. We didn't want to do it before like it gets really cold out. So yeah, if you want to partner with us, that'd be awesome. Also, we are working with the Women's Center for the International Women's Day exhibit on the 8th, like March 8th, which is still a long way away, I know. But I just figured we should talk about it now. We've been meeting with the Women's Center and like planning what we're doing. And what we're doing is part of Senate's exhibit is we're going to do student female leaders. And I know like it's an international like Women's Day, but I think it's also important to celebrate like your heritage if you're very connected to it. So if you really want to be a part of that, please let me know. We'd love to like start working on that now. We're doing like a photo series and like putting some narrative attached to them. So talk about where you're from, talk about your past, your history. Anyone who's doing that plan. So that's in one.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Jones.
So we've been working on it quite a bit, starting with renovating the South Marion basketball court. Owen has been in talks with Pete Chokowski and has agreed to get new backboards and nets. They won't be put up until spring. Be expecting a bill kind of reaffirming that, so we have something to hold into probably the next 2 weeks. Isabella has been in talks with Dr. Murray and the Women's Center, trying to really get involved in the promoting the Elect Her. We want to try to get as many young black women in that program as possible. So, Commissioner, comments? Commander Tyler, we'll be reaching out to you soon. Community outreach. So I have been in talks with Emily Rittenhouse. She's a guidance counselor at Athens Middle School. We're trying to get in there and tutor, maybe mentor some little kids, potentially bring them to DC, have them sit in on one of our commission meetings, and read them the books in there. And then upcoming events. Tomorrow we'll have our first event of the year. We're having study tables at 7 in the MCC conference room. Pizza will be there, but it's only like 2 boxes. October 8th, we'll have a really big event that I'm super excited about. Movies That Matter. We're going to be showing Fruitville Station. The whole like event, I'm going to try to do it like 2 or 3 times a semester, but we have like a movie that'll be played that deals with or discussions or touches on like deeper societal issues, and then have food and have a discussion about it afterwards. So that'll be coming up. Expected a budget for that next week. And then we are beginning planning for our FAFSA aid program. FAFSA, like the 2018-2019 application that is until the 1st of October or the 2nd of October. So I don't know when like the FAFSA for 2019-2020 will be out yet. So and we want to try to plan now like in the middle or like the deadline, so it's like incentive for people to come. Like the program is supposed to be like answering questions about FAFSA and stuff. Encouraging people to run out ASAP. I think that's it. That is the end of my report.
Thank you, President Jones. Yes, Commissioner Harris.
So I have a bit of a update / correction. So previously, and now I think Senate was told this as well as SAC presented this to about 1,500 students. We were misinformed. Printing services does not have to be used. So we were told that printing services has to be used, but they will do price matching. That is not true. They will price match, but it is not mandatory to use printing services.
Thank you.
Where this was a miscommunication out the wazoo. No one was more disappointed about it than I am. I'm very upset that we've had this happen. If you have awards or you're in awards that have questions about that or haven't exactly heard yet, we updated the application and put in a correction. It's on our workstation page, so we're trying to get it out there. That's not true. But definitely kind of keep that, pass that information on as much as possible. So that's the end of my
commissioner errors. Does any of the other commissioners have reports tonight? That's for Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, so this is for Commissioner Smith, he's really sick. So the commission has gotten down to work in a number of areas and has set a good tone for the semester. I attended the past 2 city council meetings, and we have a set date for a working meeting in the first week of November. The city council meetings are very interesting. Of course, fairly short and highly productive. I think the city government can be a great partner and pathway for addressing student concerns on and off campus. I will be doing my best to attend every week from here on out, Monday to 7. Additionally, Councilman Pat McGee attended our commission meeting last week on the 19th and shared some of his own experiences trying to get student voices heard in the university and city governance structures, which has helped give us some guidance in the commission's main project. That project, the hypothetical landlord database, is moving along at a decent pace. We are also working on revising the city code in relation to banners and signs, addressing a few parking issues, assessing the international student housing situation, and improving off-campus recycling. Oh, also, that's literally how I wrote it. We are in the middle of our engagement process with Alicia and the city planner's office to get student feedback on the Athens comprehensive plan. We will be tabling with the city planner's office outside of the courthouse tomorrow, 9/27, from 11 to 4. There will be a final forum at a later date, I believe 2 Wednesdays from now, just before the GPM. That's everything. Okay. That's the end of his report.
All right, we're going to move on to, I think it says secondary reports. I don't, well, we want to. I think we're going to talk about it.
Oh, yeah, so I'm going to give a shout out to but 2 interns that are here today, Celine and Michaela. Just a shout out, and we're also getting the mentor and the program up and running, so shout out for being here. Already we had a review on Monday, but if you're Wednesday right after.
Being proxies, very impressive, very impressive. All right. I also want to just plug the Community Service and Social Activity Committee again. Just let Hannah Graver know if you're going to be on that, and also John's committee for the networking trip planning. Let John know if you're on that. And if you want to be a mentor, let me know after this meeting. That will be my last time. Are there any university committee reports? Anyone serving on a university committee? Yes, Commissioner Eric.
So, the Post Publishing Board had their first meeting last week. This was my first one. I enjoyed it. Anna was also there, but she was there last year. So we got a report on the financials from Hans Meyer, who's the chairman of the board. It's the beginning of the year, so there wasn't really a whole lot going on in that regard. So not much to report on that. The editor-in-chief, Lauren Fisher, gave us a report about digital traffic, print distribution, and they kind of have a way to judge how many copies are being picked up for an early issue based on the academic school year. The issue addressing the sexual violence on campus did exceptionally well. It's sort of it stinks that that's the issue that did so well, but they did have very good distribution with that issue, which is good. Students are engaging in learning about that and that sort of thing. About some upcoming stories and projects. They have several new leadership positions. They actually just added an investigative team, which is pretty cool. There's an investigative editor who I actually have a lot of classes with, who's excellent. So that's pretty cool. That was pretty much it. It sounds like throughout the year, part of what this board does is sort of review the ethics and kind of critiques the quality of the paper. So if you know, you ever read something that puts you off for some reason or have any sort of reaction to something you see in the post or you have some sort of criticism, you can take that directly to the post, but it might be better to kind of pass it through Hannah and I because we have that sort of relationship and interaction with them. But if you do, absolutely bring it up because it's the only way for especially student media to improve. So that's really that's the end of my video report.
Thank you, Commissioner Aaron.
No, actually one thing. So I'm on one of the university's committees. It's either I'm on UCC and one of them. One of the committees that I'm on, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make the meeting times. They meet at very random sporadic times in the semester. And if anyone wants to meet with me afterwards, I don't want to say that I can't be a part of it anymore without having a backup. I can show you the emails. It looks like a really cool committee. Dr. Nellis is on it. I just thought they were gonna be last year where they're once every couple of weeks. This one's pretty frequently. So if you have space in your schedule, please come to me. I don't have to go.
I also have submitted backups for new positions. So if you can't make it, you can they'll just take it back.
I'm on the university the university library committee with Dustin Kelly and the other for this meeting 8 a.m. on Friday, and we talked about the new Center for Entrepreneurship, their development in the library on the third floor. Everyone should go check it out. It's open to all students. Really good meeting space. And then the Dean of Library Research that is currently going on. So that's just an update from us, but then we don't meet until November 30th. So if you guys would like to share with us.
Yes, Commissioner Jones.
That place is sick.
Just to kind of create a space, two students, I forget their names, but approached them wanting to kind of create a space for their center to have an opportunity to collaborate across majors, not just within business, so they weren't just separated within their current majors, and we could collaborate together for the university itself. So just wanted to add in.
Yeah, it's if you guys want to go in there, it's a great place to work in teams.
Yeah.
Or talk with professors that are in there. Maybe part of like she mentioned, part of the reason they moved it is they're in the college business in the corner of the college business. So if you're not in the college business, you don't know where it is half the time. So they want it to be a place where students can meet, come together, and maybe so say there's a business student with a good idea, there's an engineering student that might be able to understand how to help them get to where they want to be. That's kind of what the space meant to be too. It's if you have an idea, go talk to students and see what it's about.
And where is it located?
Third floor. So if you're going down the steps, you turn right and then left. If you come out of the building, you go left. And all of it, yes.
Yes, Commissioner Jones.
It's not open 24 hours.
No, it's I think it's 8 to 8 on Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday. I'm not sure, but it's 8 to 5.
Any other committee report?
Well, it's gonna be coming up. But I do want to so over the summer, I served on the Parking Master Plan Committee for CMP. As I served on the CMP committee last year. So we're gonna be having another meeting to finalize the Parking Master Plan either next week or the week after, and I'm gonna be getting an advanced copy of the Parking Master Plan. So there might be, so the reason I'm saying this in advance is because when I get it, I'm going to need an opinion from all y'all as to how I will vote on this, because this will affect everyone, whether it be subsidized transportation on buses, whether it be fee increases, not just for students, but for faculty. I will have to decide on that. And another thing I have to point out is that we were told that transportation parking in the next few years will be going into red. So we're going to have to be deciding whether how's it going to have to happen, whether it's going to have to be
actually talks of putting in a fee for all students. I'm not sure if that's going to go through. But because of the grants, I do have to be phased in over time. So once I get that report, once I see what's in it, I will let everyone know, and I will need everyone's opinion on this because this will affect everyone.
I was gonna say, I encourage you to put that in the Slack and we can try and get a working group together. Thank you, Assistant Principal. All right, I think we are good for university reports. So we're going to move on to executive reports tonight. Mine is gonna be relatively quick tonight, but I am trying to feature some services, some safety services on campus and different resources for student safety. Every report, just so you all know, in the next couple of reports of mine. So tonight I'm going to talk about CAT's late night services. So in case any of you all are unfamiliar with it, it's basically a free on-demand door-to-door transit service. It runs Monday through Friday 5:30 p.m. to 3 a.m., Saturday 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., and now Sundays it will also be running. They're running a pilot program the past couple of weeks due to the demand for it, 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. as well. Rides can be scheduled or requested on demand by contacting parking services via text or phone number. The phone number, if you all would like to write it down, and I can put this in the Slack later too, but it's 740-593-4040. And I'll put that in the Slack later as well. But this can go for a 2-mile radius around campus. So for if you're studying really late, you're uptown, wherever you end up being, please make sure you're utilizing and knowing the resources that are available to you. This is also something that we're trying to assess the demand for and how long it's taking for these services to get to students. So Shauna Bolin actually explicitly reached out to us and asked us to distribute this information to you all students. And keep tabs on it as well. If you're hearing from students particular issues they're having with it or really good experiences that they're having with it, please pass that along to me. As well as student health insurance, I let you know that I was on that policy committee. Anna Castillo will be coming to our general body meeting, I believe, the 31st, October 31st, to discuss student health insurance. She's in charge of student health insurance on campus. And she will also be putting out a survey regarding just getting feedback on our student health insurance policy. I will let you know when that's up and running, but I really encourage you all to take that survey and share it with your friends because this is a really good time to get student feedback. And a lot of times we have complaints about student health insurance, but we don't take advantage of the opportunities that the university gives us to actually give feedback on those. So I just wanted to update you that that's going to be coming soon, and I really encourage you all to participate in it. Lighting on campus, we're really excited. We're making some progress here. We're actually working on getting a form up and running online where students are able to submit problem areas into the form, and it would be distributed to like the correct facilities resources. So not just like, oh, I see a light out. You can do that for maintenance, but hey, I'm walking through Emory Park and I'm noticing that it's really, really dark here. So that's something I'm actually going to be heading up and working on. I will be putting in Slack soon here, trying to put together a working group to establish some type of formal process for this. But we're really excited about this. We got the go ahead from Steve Woods, so we're very excited about that. And then the last thing is I just wanted to let you all know tonight we will also be going into executive session very briefly after the meeting. So just be sure that you know that after our reports end to hang around for executive session. We will also be asking the press to wait again during that time to discuss a sensitive nature. So that's the end of my report. And
All right, so my report, just wanted to give some information about the Safety Act. We haven't met since the last time we spoke, but we scheduled early weeks, so on Monday we had an all commissioners meeting. So we use this time, like I talked about before, to talk about issues that the commissioners are having. And we do fun things like cross-commission collaboration. Seems, that's hard to say it. And specifically, we talked a lot about CPS, which last DVM, we had students speak out about that. So there's a couple of commissions that are really interested in working to see what's going on at CPS. Additionally, yesterday, Maddie, Lydia, John, and I talked with the president of the Student Senate Alumni Board, Keith, and we just talked about homecoming, we talked about our DC trip, we talked about advocacy day, so I just wanted to keep everyone there. That's
it. Okay, so Anna already talked a little bit about SAC, but I'm also going to say this to them. You need people. Please come. Please be our friend. Please talk to your professors if you are in business classes or economics class. I know Morgan and Anna will probably second that idea as well. But we really need people. We really want to be an efficient, functioning body, and this is really important. This is a huge commission of Senate, and we want to have a great team. So our next meeting is this Sunday, and also we're going to have our first money leadership team. Thanks to Anna for scheduling that. If you have not met Casey and Chris, they are the staff TAs. So they may be in and out of the Senate office, talking to Anna mostly, or talking to me. They're both very nice people. So that you all say hi and you know them. Also, shout out to Nicole for being amazing and giving me all her IMS receipts for the event. She's a rock star, and I'm hoping to see other cool events from you all too. Also, according to my evaluation, there was someone who said that they would like to know how to submit a budget. Please reach out to me or John or Chris or Luke or anyone who has been a Senate and has submitted a budget before. We are all here to help you. And if you feel like I'm not available, I really, so please text me or Slack me or me something. Smoke signals, I don't know. And also, as a friendly reminder for presentations, just remember to close your laptops and don't be on your phones. I only saw limited people that tonight, and I still wanted to keep numbers. So there's one number on here that's not exactly correct. I did a little Excel tweaking after we moved. So the Senate total is $24,718.23. The one that is incorrect is allocated not spent is $13,358.81. Not allocated nor spent is $11,359.42. SAC total is $220,834.57. Spot is $144,005.02. Youth fund is $76,829.55. These numbers are true, accurate, to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you, Treasurer Rose. All right, Chief of Staff Lending. I have a couple of people that I'm supposed to go to first, so I'll do that. First is John.
Okay. I'm just gonna talk about homecoming for a little bit. Kind of like the timeline for what homecoming is gonna be like. Homecoming is on October 20th, on that Saturday. The parade is at 10 a.m. That's when step off is. I'll be there by 9:40. That way we have to be there. It's one of the best events of the year. I love it. 11 a.m. We're gonna have a little meet and greet at the Senate office, so you should see a budget soon for that. From 12 to 2, we're partnering with Student Affairs for the tent this year. There'll be a link for registration for the tent coming out shortly. And then 2 p.m. is kickoff for homecoming. We're also in the works of doing a community service project on Sunday. Rachel and I have the details down for that. But look forward to a community service project on Sunday.
Next is me.
Just happy. For the rest of my time. Everyone, so just a quick reminder, just make sure to keep the office clean. You guys are in there, pick up your trash and stuff. Another thing is I was cleaning the office the other day and there was some clothes from last year that were left in there. I don't know why, some dress shirts, all that.
not really a good place to leave your, stuff there. They're in I put them in a bin, in case anyone left it. Another thing is I'm going to create a lost and found for anyone that has left stuff in the office. But yeah, it's just another honest thing.
So when Alicia gets me the list of seniors, I'm going to be sending everyone emails about a Google poll to schedule times for the interviews for this semester. Just keep an eye out.
So I got a bunch of inquiries from a bunch of people about getting an email from Alexa Grillis about student orgs that you have been assigned to. So you can send an email if you want, but she is creating a sheet with all of the president's emails, and then she'll put that in Slack. You can just send an email from there. If you would like, you can just go to Orgs and do it yourself. It's really hard for us to send an email now. But that will be coming later this week. So yeah, so the purpose is we assign a couple orgs to the senators, hopefully like something around your position, something through super random, so we just give you some random things. And this is to be a point of contact for that org, so like they know that they can come to this person if they need you to talk about something here in the body, or they have an initiative that they want you to start, or just like anything like that. You are that resource for them, which is something that was really important to us, something that we ran on and senior research for orgs.
So in the past, they've never answered your emails, our emails, which, like you heard, that's fine. I like the idea, so I want to like work harder on that this year. Is there any way that we can like reach out to them somehow? Like, I know that each of us have worked with
if you would like to, you can find their meeting time on their worksheet and go to their meeting if you want. I mean, you can get as creative as you want. You could set up an individual meeting with the president. I mean, whatever you want. But that would be the meeting. Okay. I'm also gonna plug the pop-up meeting that Tucker already said before, but it's super important. We got a lot of feedback today at our pop-up engagement. It's crucial. The city plan has never brought in student voices to it, and this time Paul and I really want to. And so we have things like a renter survey. So if you want to complain about your rent prices and your quality, you can do it there. And safety off campus, like where they should put more lights in, anything like that. It is very helpful. I'm going to be outside of the courthouse tomorrow from 11 to 4. And other than that,
Yep. All right, clerk of court, Milton.
Okay, so generally my reports this year have not been long. This one's going to be an exception to that. I'm not terribly long. I'm with it, but this is pretty straightforward. So, to begin with, going back to President Slope's report she gave about lighting and fixing stuff. For those of you who don't know, I'm an RA in Shively, and I've noticed that like that long straight stretch of East Green Drive, like between Perkins and Everett Sculptor, all of those lights in front of Perkins have been out all year, and they fixed them, and they were on this weekend. So that's good. And the late night bus, or yes, that. It's on the back of their phone numbers on the back of your student ID. So, like, just a fun fact, you can tell your people that that's the case. They can find it there. So, now on to other businessy stuff. Rumor has it that there are people who are already talking about Senate elections. It's September. So, as per the rules and procedures, which you all should have read, but you know, that's besides the point, 13.10E, potential candidates may establish an executive team of president, vice president, and treasurer beginning during week 12 of the fall semester. This is week 5, we're not there yet. And 13.10F, potential candidates may establish all other positions other than those listed in 13.10E, beginning the first day of winter break. Okay, we're definitely not there yet. Midterms haven't been done. And if you're doing this, 13.29A6, or A to begin with, Class A violations. Any ticket or candidate in violation of a Class A infraction is disqualified from the election. Class A violations are a bunch of stuff, and then you get to campaigning without having submitted a ticket declaration form to the panel. So we decided last year that anyone talking about elections prior to the time they were allowed to talk about elections were participating in campaigning. So we will literally disqualify you. Please stop talking about Senate elections until at least week 12. You have 7 weeks to go. So there's me being mean. Though that was nicer than I could have been. So I still met all the qualifications there. We now have a vacancy in a justice position on the panel. So if any of your friends are interested, please tell them to let myself know, or Matthew know, or someone on the panel know. Chief Thomas told me that he was going to be reopening the application at some point today. I haven't checked to see if that actually happened, but if it did, it will be up soon because Matthew's on top of everything he does. So now that is the end of my question.
All right, we're going to move on to the advisory report. Dr. Pina is not with us. He is right. And Dr. Holder.
I wanted to remind everyone, I think Hunter mentioned it last week, but next week, this coming week, is the meal donation swipe program. So, in the resident in the dining halls next week, if you happen to be a meal plan holder and you sold your meals and you have meals left over, you can donate up to 3 to our meal bank, which I'm really excited about. 2 students already have accessed it, and we haven't even advertised it. So, please donate next week. And then if you know people who are hungry, who are, and a lot of times it's upper class students because they don't have meal plans anymore. But sometimes it's also people who have the lowest amount of meal plans and that's all they can afford. Once we get all these donations next week, which I'm hoping are going to be a lot, we will then have a lot more opportunity to give swipes out to students in need. And you can get that off the Dean Students website. So if you just go to the Dean Students website, there's a section on Bobcats helping Bobcats, and it talks about the food pantry and also talks about how to apply if you would like to have some of those meal swipes. So check that out. I don't know if you may or may not know that I have a little side hustle, so I just want to share this with everybody. That lately I've done 2 weddings previously where I've officiated weddings, and I'm officiating a Bobcat wedding 2 weeks from now. So when you're all in love and want to get married, I just want to say that I would be happy to be your officiant. And this is my first great wedding. I've only done gay weddings before, so I'm kind of nervous. So we'll be fun. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. So I'll bring pictures of that. Maybe I'll change my thing to my official officiant picture. And then the last thing is that Jordan made me promise to karaoke and get out the vote.
Oh, yes.
So we're not going to do golf cart karaoke because I'm not allowed to do that anymore. But I was thinking like escalator karaoke, and my get out the vote song is going to be "I Will Survive." You know that song? Yes. So we're so afraid. I was petrified, but we can work through it. I've changed the lyrics. It'll be fun. So if anybody wants to sing the Get Out the Vote karaoke, we are filming at 9 a.m. next Tuesday. And John, I have updated the lyrics. I will send John the new lyrics, and he can get them out so you can practice. At 9 a.m. we'll meet in the Senate office on Tuesday.
Yes.
For Get Out the Vote karaoke. Gloria Gaynor version. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. All right, Todd, you have your report.
So I don't have any karaoke to talk about, of course, but I wanted to remind everybody that this coming weekend is Parent and Family Weekend. So for those of you that are hosting people on campus, make sure that you take them to the many programmed events that are here on campus. There are plenty of sporting events. There are parent and family receptions. There's football games. Big deal. It's a fun time. Come on, go. It's football. But there's also like zip lining in the ridges and a ton of other things. So please take advantage of those. But also, if you do have someone coming or a group of people coming and you realize that maybe some of your friends don't, or they don't have people to come at all, make sure you include them and make sure that, you know, the term family, you know, we as Bobcats, we're family, so bring them into your home family, make them feel, you know, happy, because it's a good time. It's fun to meet people and have a lot of fun with all these really cool events that are coming. But that's all I really have. So get out, support your Bobcats, have a good time. We're gonna be, well, we'll see what happens, but it's gonna be a good game. And go Bobcats.
Okay. I motion to move into executive session.
All those in favor of moving into executive session, please raise your hand. All those opposed, abstentions. All right, one abstention. We are going to move into executive session now. Just as a reminder, all 9 Senate members will have to leave the room during this time. Just as like an informative executive session is used to discuss matter of sensitive nature. As a reminder, no actions are taken during executive session. There are times for the body to discuss something privately.